I am acutely aware of the constraints of council's role in this situation. We are the Crown Land Manager, but we grant to the lessee wide and seemingly unfettered powers to run that site in the way that they wish. And despite the strident tone that I took with Andrea, I want to again make it entirely clear that one of the things that's terribly distressing about this whole situation is the fact that we think the world of the HDAA and the stewardship that they've given that site for many, many decades, and their tireless and largely voluntary work in improving that site and making it available not only at extremely public times like the Hawkesbury Show, but for a variety of other purposes throughout the year. Good on them.
Just that was
But we also think the world of our equestrian community, and it's so deeply ingrained in the fabric of the Hawkesbury community, it must be conceded. Surely it must be conceded that as the Crown Land Manager and as the potentially mediating figure, we have some role in asking parties in dispute to come to the table and to keep talking. The ambition of this motion is merely to invite the parties to keep talking in the hope that they will do so in good faith. There is some evidence to the hand that parties are not committed to arguing in good faith. I'm concerned that after the previous resolution of this chamber, which clearly stated our desire for the parties to come to an agreeable settlement, as that HDAA poorly treated Equestrian New South Wales by refusing the invitation that they were well aware of, that this be independently mediated at a neutral venue, that both sides could send whatever representatives they wished, and that the goal would be an agreeable settlement. I still hold hope that that can occur. What I've heard this evening does not increase that hope. Nevertheless, we lose nothing by passing this motion because A, we invite the parties to continue talking. 2, we hold faith with a significant community within the Hawkesbury that rely on access to these fields.
Sure.
We continue to get use and indeed revenue out of a portion of our showground, the community's showground, that trains Commonwealth and Olympic champions, something that we should be very, very proud of. And we avoid the unpleasantness of what is clearly going to evolve and increase with representations to the media or representations to ministers to override us. And I'd rather the parties talk and come to some kind of agreement.
Sure.
Andrea stated that there was no request from HDAA to take up everybody's time tonight, not just the Chamber's time, but all of the people that have taken time out of their evening to be here and listen to a lot of extra debate before we arrived here. I can declare that James Hall asked me specifically. I would not have done this. I would not have wasted everybody's time unless that request had been made. He said that if this motion were brought, that HDAA would continue to treat with these parties, and that whatever the reasons are, the as yet not yet fully articulated reasons that were the sticking point, could be further debated, and that an agreement could be made over 8% of the showground site, over land that HDAA have since promised in writing would be continued. They would continue to make that land available for equestrian purposes, and yet since November, that land has not been used for equestrian purposes. The community are the losers here. It doesn't escape my attention that Council's own advice to us says that there is a moderate reputational risk to Council if the parties can't come to some kind of agreement. We should take that advice seriously in this chamber simply by doing what I've proposed here, and that is we invite the parties to continue to talk. Anybody that votes against that, I think, is perverse. And furthermore, since ministerial consent is going to be at issue, is that we make the Chamber's view clear on whether we'd like to preserve those capital improvements. Thank you.
Councillors and that want to be part.
Thank you. There are a number of misapprehensions that need to be cleared up. Firstly, it cannot be stated that a notice of motion that invites feuding parties to attend a mediated negotiation is attempting to pit sections of our community against each other. In fact, entirely the opposite. It cannot be said that I am ex cathedra committing council to $10,000 worth of expense when you would assume, but I'll make it clear for you, that I asked the general manager first. I asked the general manager months ago. I said, I think this needs to be mediated. And the general manager gave her assent to say, if the parties are willing, council will provide a mediator. And I was very grateful and I proceeded on that basis. Am I disappointed that council as an organisation did not apply more pressure in its expectations to the parties that this should be the subject of a mediated discussion, the point that Councillor Wheeler made? Yes, I am a little disappointed because in the absence of that pressure, HDAA, if I could employ a pun, had the whip hand in saying this is going to be agreed to on our turf, on our terms. You've got 15 minutes, there'll be no questions, and when we say no, we won't have to give you answers. It is not correct to say that I am portraying HDAA as evil or the baddies in this situation. The people in the HDAA are my friends. Sorry, I should have this on. People in the HDAA are my friends, but we occasionally disagree with our friends. The HDAA on this particular occasion are being stiff-necked. It's my view that the people in the HDAA have not argued in good faith. They're welcome to argue to the contrary. It is not open for the HDAA to claim that I have brought this motion on a deception, and it is increasingly inappropriate for the Deputy Mayor to say that I have actively tried to deceive this chamber and to waste its time and to waste the time of other people who have been led to a false hope. Because when I had that discussion with James Hall weeks ago, and he made that specific request, and I said, I'll bring it. Then I immediately, after that communication, relayed the substance of that communication to other parties who will attest that the very day that I'd had the conversation with HDAA's designated representative, is that I said, right, there may be a way through here. I'm happy to bring this back to the chamber. I hope my fellow councillors are of a similar mind. Reading the room, I'm happy for this to be presented in seriatim. Consider that all I'm asking us to do is to invite the parties to attend a mediation, and I would expect them to turn it down if they believe that there's genuinely nothing to be negotiated any further. No is no, end of the story. I lived in hopes that the reasons, which we're not aware of, by the way, why HDAA turned down this, what I believe to be fairly comprehensive proposal that was advanced to lease 8% of the showground for a certain number of weekends during the year, and to use the other facilities that HDAA offer on that site with appropriate compensation and all of the relevant negotiations that would surround access, keys, security, toilets, clean-up, and so forth, which were completely acceptable to the HDAA for all of the years in which they had that sublease agreement with Dressage New South Wales. Now this is totally unconscionable. It can't be considered. And furthermore, the reasons, were we to tell you, aren't amenable to further negotiation. Yes, I think HDAA could have comported themselves a little better. But the council would be irresponsible if we took the advice that we've asked for and which has been given to us and says, hey, there's a moderate reputational risk here. Not a minor one, a moderate reputational risk, unless we use our clout, our unique role as Crown Land Managers, to ask the parties to keep talking. I'm not ashamed of that. All I can say is that if I ever get to the point where I become as cynical as the Deputy Mayor, I hope I have the good sense to retire from politics at that hour.